Imagine something tiny, something you can't even see. It floats around looking for a place to call home. Sometimes it finds a cell in your body and it gets inside. It doesn't mean to, but sometimes this tiny thing can change things, really deeply change them. Not just for a day or a week, but forever. Not just for you, but for everyone who comes after you. This tiny thing is a virus, and we're talking about ancient viruses, viruses that attacked our ancestors millions of years ago. Viruses that didn't just make them sick, they actually wrote themselves into our DNA, and they stayed there. They're still there in you, in me, in every human alive. They changed our DNA forever. They shaped who we are. This sounds like science fiction, but it's not. It's just how life works sometimes. It's evolution, but in a way that's a bit wilder than you might expect. Let's break it down. You know DNA, right? It's like the instruction book for your body. Every cell in your body has a copy of it. It tells your hair what color to be, your eyes what shape to be, your heart how to beat. It's packed with information billions of letters long. Now, viruses are different. They're not really alive in the same way a cell is. They're just genetic material, DNA, or something similar, wrapped in a protein coat. They can't do much on their own. They need a host. They need to get into a cell, hijack its machinery, and make more copies of themselves. That's how they spread, and that's how they make you sick. But some viruses are special. They're called retroviruses. HIV, the virus that causes AIDS, is a retrovirus. What makes them special is how they copy themselves. When a retrovirus gets into a cell, it doesn't just make more viral copies. It actually takes its own genetic material, which is usually RNA, and turns it into DNA. Then, and this is the key part, it inserts that viral DNA right into the host cell's own DNA. It stitches itself in. It becomes part of the cell's instruction book. Most of the time, this happens in regular body cells. Those cells might then make more viruses, or they might just die. But the viral DNA stays put in that one cell. It doesn't affect the rest of the body in a lasting way. But imagine this. What if a retrovirus infects a very specific kind of cell? What if it gets into a germ cell? That's a sperm cell or an egg cell. These are the cells that pass on genetic information to the next generation. If a retrovirus infects a germ cell, and if that germ cell then goes on to make a new person, then that person will have the viral DNA in every single cell of their body. Not just some cells, but all of them. And because it's in their germ cells too, they can pass it on to their children and their children's children, and so on, for millions of years. When this happens, the virus is no longer an outside invader. It's now inside. It's become part of our own DNA. We call these endogenous retroviruses, or ERVs for short. Endogenous means coming from within. They are literally pieces of ancient viruses living inside us. And when I say pieces, I mean huge pieces. About 8% of the human genome, that instruction book for your body, is made up of ERVs. Think about that. Almost a tenth of your DNA isn't really human. DNA in the traditional sense. It's viral DNA, it's the genetic leftovers of countless battles between our ancestors and ancient viruses. Most of these ERVs are really old. They got into our ancestors' DNA millions of years ago. Over time, many of them have broken down. Mutations piled up. They lost their ability to make new viruses. They're like old, crumbling buildings in a city. They're still there, taking up space, but they don't do what they were originally built for. For a long time, scientists thought of them as junk DNA, just biological clutter, without any real purpose. But that's where the story gets really interesting. It turns out, not all ERVs are just junk. Some of them actually do things, important things, things that make us who we are, things that helped us evolve. One of the most mind-blowing examples is the human placenta. You know, that organ that connects a pregnant mother to her baby. It's essential for mammals. It feeds the baby, cleans its waste, and protects it. Without a good placenta, mammals like us couldn't have evolved the way we did. We wouldn't have long pregnancies inside the mother, and our babies wouldn't develop properly. Well, a crucial protein that helps form the placenta, called syncytin, came from an ancient virus. Yes, really. Millions of years ago, a retrovirus infected our primate ancestors. This virus had a gene that allowed it to fuse cells together. That's how it would spread, by making infected cells merge with healthy ones. But somehow that viral gene got co-opted. Our ancestors' bodies started using it. They took this viral trick and turned it into something beneficial. The syncytin gene, which is an ERV, makes cells in the placenta fuse together. This creates a barrier between the mother's blood and the baby's blood. It's not a complete mixing, it's a controlled exchange. This barrier protects the baby from the mother's immune system, which would otherwise see the baby as a foreign invader and attack it. It also helps transport nutrients and oxygen efficiently, so a virus, an ancient enemy, gave us one of our most defining features as mammals. Without this viral gift, we might not even be here, or we'd be very different. That's a huge change, a permanent mark on our DNA that totally reshaped our evolutionary path. And it's not just the placenta. ERVs might have played other roles too. Take immunity, for example. Our immune system is constantly fighting off invaders. Sometimes having these old viral pieces in our DNA can actually help. Some ERVs can act as decoys, training our immune system to recognize viral threats. They might produce proteins that look like parts of active viruses, giving our immune cells something to practice on. Or they might help regulate immune responses, making them stronger or sometimes even calming them down when needed. It's like having an old war veteran living in your house, sometimes giving you tips on how to fight off new attackers. There's also growing evidence that ERVs are involved in brain development and function. Our brains are incredibly complex. Researchers are finding that some ERVs are particularly active in brain cells. They might influence how neurons connect, how they communicate, or even how our brains evolved their unique structures. This area is still being heavily researched, and we don't have all the answers yet, but it's a fascinating thought that parts of our very thoughts and consciousness might be influenced by ancient viral passengers. And beyond these specific roles, ERVs can also act as gene regulators. Imagine switches in your DNA. These switches turn other genes on or off, or turn their volume up or down. ERVs, even those that are mostly broken, can contain these kinds of switches. They can sit near other important genes and subtly influence how those genes behave. This means ERVs might have a hand in many biological processes, from how our bodies develop to how we respond to stress, simply by tweaking the expression of nearby genes. It's like having a quiet neighbor who sometimes turns your lights on or off without you even realizing it's them. But it's not all good news. Sometimes these ancient passengers can cause problems. While most ERVs are quiet and dormant, some can reactivate. They might start making proteins or even try to make new viral particles. When this happens, it can sometimes lead to disease. ERVs have been linked to autoimmune diseases. These are conditions where your immune system mistakenly attacks your own body. Diseases like lupus or multiple sclerosis might be partly triggered by ERVs that get reactivated. If an ERV suddenly starts producing viral-like proteins, your immune system might see them as a threat. But because these proteins are part of your cells, your immune system might then start attacking those cells, leading to inflammation and tissue damage. They've also been implicated in some cancers. If an ERV reactivates and disrupts the function of genes that control cell growth, it could potentially contribute to uncontrolled cell division, which is what cancer is. Or, if an ERV inserts itself in the wrong place in the DNA, it could accidentally turn on a cancer-causing gene or turn off a cancer-suppressing gene. So, these ancient hitchhikers, while mostly harmless or even helpful, can sometimes turn against us. It's a complex relationship. This whole story is a beautiful example of coevolution. It's like a long drawn-out dance between host and pathogen. Viruses try to invade and spread. Hosts try to defend themselves. But sometimes, in this struggle, the host doesn't just block the virus. It captures a piece of it, it domesticates it, and then it uses that piece for its own benefit. It's a different way for evolution to work, not just slow, gradual changes from random mutations and natural selection, but big, sudden jumps, where an entire gene or set of genes gets incorporated from an outside source. These viral insertions are like time capsules in our DNA. We can look at the sequences of different ERVs in different species and see when these infection events likely happened. We can trace back our evolutionary history, seeing the viral battles our ancestors fought. For example, some ERVs are found in all primates, meaning they integrated before monkeys and apes split from a common ancestor. Others are only found in specific primate groups, showing a more recent infection. It's like a fossil record, but written in genetic code. How do scientists figure all this out? It's pretty amazing. They use tools like genomic sequencing, which lets them read the entire instruction book of an organism. They can compare the DNA of humans, chimps, mice, and other animals. By seeing which ERVs are shared and which are unique, they can build a timeline of these ancient infections. They also study gene expression. This means looking at when and where an ERV's DNA is actually being read and turned into proteins or RNA. If an ERV is active in the placenta or the brain, for instance, that's a clue that it might be doing something important there. And sometimes they can do knockout studies in animals like mice. This is where they specifically disable or remove an ERV from the mouse's DNA. Then they watch to see what happens. If removing a specific ERV causes the mouse to have problems forming a placenta, for example, that's strong evidence that the ERV was crucial for that function. Of course, this is done in a very careful and ethical way, usually in a lab setting, to understand fundamental biological processes. We are still learning so much about ERVs. Our understanding of them is constantly growing. There are still many ERVs in our DNA that we don't know what they do. They are part of the vast amount of our genome that we used to call junk, but are now realizing might hold many secrets. It's like exploring an uncharted forest within ourselves. What does the future hold for understanding ERVs? Well, we might discover even more essential roles they play. We might find ways to control the ones that cause disease, perhaps by developing drugs that silence them when they reactivate. And maybe, just maybe, we could learn to harness the beneficial ones, to enhance our immunity, or even repair damaged tissues. The fact that viruses, these tiny agents of disease, could become such fundamental building blocks of who we are, is a testament to the messy, unpredictable, and ultimately beautiful process of evolution. It shows that life finds a way to adapt and incorporate even from its enemies. So, did an ancient virus change our DNA forever? Absolutely. Not just one virus, but many, over millions of years. They are written into our very being. They helped create the placenta that protected us in our mother's womb. They might fine-tune our immune systems. They might even whisper instructions to our brains. They remind us that we are not isolated islands. We are deeply connected to the entire history of life on Earth, even to the microscopic world of viruses. Our existence is a mosaic, built not just from our ancestors' genes, but also from the genetic ghosts of their ancient viral foes. It's a story of invasion, integration, and ultimate transformation. And it's a story that continues to unfold, right inside every one of us.